try again, baby. And I believe it's working. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the live stream. Who we got in the house today? It's time for the sound off. As we're in our what do you call it? Like the about to start. We're technically started, but we haven't quite started yet. Ryan Hale, yo, what up, dude? How you doing, buddy? Good to see you, man. Thanks for dropping by. Red Pepper John, what up, dude? How's it going, man? There are other people lurking too. I saw them in there. They're just afraid to type anything in chat because I'm going to say their names. It's terrifying. Are you guys ready for some fun tonight? You guys ready to talk about some fun, amazing stuff tonight? Jonathan Ruley, what up, dude? How you doing? Jay Tyler, hello. Daniel Archer, what up? Raul Vasquez, what up, dude? Leslie Castles, hello. Facing your fears, yes. Oh, you're doing, Ryan said he's doing a Godstein CNC game? What's CNC? Because of your streams, it's dope. Sweet, dude, I'm glad you like it, man. I'm having fun in mine. So, Jonathan says, the short answer, yes, it will hurt, but Paizo will find a way out of it. Yeah, Paizo is really big, so, like, whew, it would be crazy. Be crazy if they didn't, but... Dane, hello, welcome back, dude. It's all right. You know, you got to take a break. Things come up. It's all right. You don't got to be here in every stream, but you're here now. It's all good. The Crimson Black Dragon says, my wife is watching her YouTube channel. Name is Lady Grimm, 1994. Hello, Lady Grimm. She's lurking there. Castles and Crusades. Oh, okay. All right. I literally have that on my shelf. I played it a few times at conventions, too. It just didn't like, click, you know. Lady Grimm, hello. How you doing? Well, we're all here. We're all alive. You know, that's usually a good start. So, all right. So tonight we're going to be talking about the Diamond Comic Distribution bankruptcy and how recently they have decided, well, they're going to try to. So they're going through bankruptcy proceedings and they're going to try to lay claim to all of... So lots of publishers, over 100 publishers have books and other products in their warehouses. And Diamond, what they want to do is they want to basically, and it doesn't belong to Diamond, it belongs to all the publishers. What they want to do is take all of those books and products, sell them, and keep all of the money so that they can pay off their creditors, the people they owe money to because of their bankruptcy, which means that the publishers would not get anything. The books literally belong to the publishers. Publishers like Paizo, Goodman Games, Roll for Combat. I think a couple comic book companies, I think Marvel was in there. Was DC? I think DC Comics was in there too. Pretty sure they were. And there's a list of 128 companies that have product in Diamond's warehouses that Diamond literally, quite literally wants to say, ours, sell it. And then, well, they're not keeping the money. They're going to give it to the people they owe money to, such as, what was it? It was Chase Bank, I think, is one of their biggest creditors that they owe money to. But the point is that what they want to do is take the money, basically, for all intents and purposes, and none of the publishers would get any money for their books. That's what they want to do. Now, so we're gonna talk about that tonight. I'm gonna give my thoughts on that. I have some articles we're gonna take a look at. So, I don't know. I've seen lots of people making videos on it and stuff, and I don't know. I haven't like made an official video on it, and I thought it was probably not a bad idea to just kind of talk about it and get my thoughts out there, you know, and probably also give my perspective too, because we publish books not at the scale as some of these companies. Obviously, we're like small potato publisher. But we publish books. You know, we have 5 books now in our product line. It's not a small thing, you know. So, but it's not like huge. It's not like Paizo level, nowhere near it, or Goodman Games, nowhere near it, nothing like that. But I perhaps have a little bit of thoughts, maybe, about the kind of impact that has to a publisher. I know what kind of impact that would have to me. Like, if all of a sudden I have my inventory is at a fulfillment partner's warehouse. If all of a sudden they were like, we're taking it and you can't have it, like, yeah, that would have dramatic financial impacts on me. So yeah, it's gonna be a big thing. There's gonna be some problems that ripple through the TTRPG industry, the comic book industry. I mean, there's gonna be some impacts. So we're gonna talk about that. Just have a little leisurely discussion. Now, one of the things, we do have a giveaway going on right now. If you go into, I think Nightbot is probably working, and it looks like it just dropped a link to our giveaway. So you can click that link, go in, sign up for the giveaway. We're giving away $50 DM Lair store credit. You can go onto our store, buy whatever you want. With $50, you know, we ship it to you and whatever. It's fun, it's cool. We have lots of 5th edition and Pathfinder 2 stuff over there. Books, hardcovers, PDFs, we have map packs, we have Foundry modules, we have a whole bunch of stuff over there you might like. So, giveaway tonight, sign up for it, it's free, we'll draw the winner at the end of the live stream, and we also have a store going on, we also have a sale going on right now. It's our 4th of July sale, celebrating Independence Day for the United States, and you can get up to 50% off everything that we have over on our store. My cat wants to come up here. I should probably let him. Come on, buddy, get on, you big chunker. You can get up here. So go over there, check out the sale, see if you like something. The sale will be ending tomorrow, July 11th. So you got like, you know, a day left basically. So go check that out. It might be something over you like, using your games and all that kind of cool stuff. Dane says, is this really the world we live in right now? Wow, yeah, literally. Yeah. So it's like, legally, can they do it? The answer is probably. Is it moral and ethical to do so? Oh my gosh, no. Oh my gosh, no. And I'll probably touch on this in more detail later, but it's, so the thing that gets me, I guess my biggest problem, I suppose, is that Diamond is bankrupt. They're kaput. They're done. They're over. They're probably donesies. Maybe not. I don't know. I think I was reading something that they got like a big cash infusion from somebody, so they might. I think their bankruptcy is restructuring. It's not because there's 2 types of bankruptcy, and I'm not super familiar on this stuff. But there's one where you restructure so that you can become financially viable, and then there's another where you're just like, we're done. We liquidate everything and pay everyone as much as we can. They're doing the restructuring one, unless I'm wildly mistaken, which is possible. But since they're restructuring, the intention is that they could get back to where they're financially viable and continue plotting forward. So, well, thank you, Lady Graham. My kitty is adorable. He's jealous, though. As soon as I'm talking down here on a meeting or on the live stream, he gets jealous and comes in and wants to be up here. He doesn't, well, sometimes he comes up here. Well, in the mornings, he's always bothering me. But at this time of the day, he's usually not up here. But now he, of course, is. So, what was I saying? Oh yeah, Diamond. So they're basically, I mean, they're going through bankruptcy right now, and it's kind of like, so they had some mismanagement, they had some bad decision making, they lost some big publishers, so I think it was a combination of, so I was reading an article about why they went bankrupt, and the long and short of it, just from my skimming through this article, seems to be, and I could be a little bit, take a grain of salt here because I didn't do like deep dive research on this, but it seems like one of the contributing factors to their bankruptcy to begin with is that, well, they were the giant, right? They were the giant in distribution for at least a certain industry, a certain niche. My understanding is TTRPGs and comic books. I think that was their 2 biggest things, I think. But they were like the giant, right? And it seems to be a case where the giant sat on their laurels and they didn't make any meaningful, and they had a reputation for being there were lots of complaints and lots of criticisms of them. Okay, so they didn't have a stellar reputation. It seems like it was a case of the giant who sat on their laurels and didn't keep up with innovations, keep up with competition and stuff, and make sure that they stay at the top of their game. And then you had competitors arising, other distributors and stuff that were coming too. It seems like especially around the COVID time, it started to get a little bit like fiercer, and they lost some big clients that other distributors they were competing with them were doing a lot better. You know, and Diamond was struggling to keep up, and then they lost some big clients, and then boom, bankruptcy. And it seems like, according to this article I was reading, it seems like it wasn't like a mystery. It seems like people kind of saw it coming, so maybe it wasn't a surprise. But to me, when I read that, this is a layperson, right? I don't claim to be an expert on these things, but as a layperson, when I read that and how they literally just let themselves, you know, they just let it go, and then they paid the price for it. But now they are quite literally trying to drag other publishing companies down potentially into bankruptcy with them. And that is absolutely deplorable. It is deplorable, unethical. Like, you cannot, it's kind of like, you know, if I go down, you go down too, you know? So I'm dying, I'm done, but I'm gonna take as many people down with me as possible. Now, if you're in a war, you know, like, and you got bullet holes in you, and you're like, I'm gonna take the enemy down with me, that's fine. But this isn't the enemy. These aren't the enemy. These are literally your customers. These were the people that were working with you. Okay, these were the publishers that trusted you with their product. These are the publishers that made you money. They put goods with you on consignment, and there was this relationship of trust, customer. You know, well, you can't get on my lap. You gotta give me some space. All right. So it's like, it's not like the publishers are the enemy and they're gonna take them down with them. It's like, these were your friends, these were your allies, these were your brothers in arms. And now, just because you got all shot up with bullets, you're gonna turn and try to take them out with you. Those are the good guys. You know, so this is just, it just seems super messed up. It's super messed up, you know, and to definitely impact the financials of other companies and potentially cause other companies to slide into bankruptcy, maybe have layoffs, have downsizing, have vast financial repercussions, you know, because you're going under. It's just reprehensible. I don't think there are words enough to describe how horrible it is, you know, and whether or not it's legal. And it seems like it is technically probably legal, and they're using some technicalities, it seems like, to get away with it. And again, the court, there is a court hearing on July 21st, I believe, where the court is going to hear Diamond's arguments for stealing, essentially, other people's books and selling them to satisfy their creditors. And then they're going to hear the arguments of companies like Goodman Games and Paizo and the other 128. I mean, not every company is going to be there, but like 128 companies are potentially going to lose product that they're never going to get back and they're never going to see money for. And so at that court hearing, you know, there's going to be arguments presented to why they should be able to steal people's books. And then those companies, the publishers, are going to try to present arguments why they shouldn't be able to, you know. But it sounds like not only is there precedent for this happening, it sounds like it's likely to happen, which is just absolutely abysmally reprehensible. Well, I mean, you know, if you have a company that has had tons of criticism and doesn't have a stellar reputation, it shouldn't shock you that they do something like this, you know. So, not that excuses it, but so I think just at the surface level or whatever, just simple like question of like right and wrong, they're clearly in the wrong, you know. And it's like, okay, so Chase Bank is going to get some money. Do I really care about Chase Bank? Do I really care about this big, massive bank, you know, with billions of dollars, when it's going to affect companies that I like? You know, Paizo, I play Pathfinder 2. You know, I have their books on my shelf. We have fun playing Pathfinder 2. You know, Goodman Games, they make DCC. I've played DCC. Well, it's actually the funnels, which I don't think technically classify as DCC because it's not the real meat of the game. It's just a generic fantasy game at the funnel level, but I have the book, and someday at a convention, I hope to find a leveled DCC game to actually be able to claim that I have played it, because I don't think saying you played the funnels counts as actually playing DCC, because it's a generic fantasy game until you get to the leveled stuff and you get the actual meat of like weird spells and all these cool things and stuff. So anyway, but I have the book. Hopefully one day I'll get to play it for realsies. And I have one of Roll for Combat's books back there, and Stephen Glicker and I talk every so often, and we see each other at conventions and stuff. So I know, with this kind of stuff that he's working on and stuff. So, and I've met Joseph Goodman. I talked with Joseph Goodman from Goodman Games. I've met some of the people from Paizo. And so these are people that I know have somewhat of a relationship, or at least a casual, like, oh, I've met them before type of thing. And it's just insane to me that they're going to be financially affected by another company's bad management for all intents and purposes. Their inability to keep up with their competition, their inability to manage their company properly. They were probably full of bloat. Most big companies that are resting on their laurels have tons of bloat, usually middle management and stuff. They're vastly inefficient because they don't have to be inefficient. They don't have to have innovation because they're the giant. They're at the top of the pack. It's like Kodak, the Kodak story. And so to know that other companies are being affected by that is just, it's wrong, dude. It's unsettling, and it's just, what is it they call it? It's a miscarry of justice, I suppose, is the term. So, I guess those are like my feelings on the matter as far as like right or wrong and ethics and stuff. So, my hope is that at that court hearing on July 21st that the judge is going to be like, no, you can't steal people's product, idiots. I would love if that were, if that's the judge's literal words, that would be amazing. Like, you guys are sleazeballs, you're not stealing all of their products and causing deep financial distress to them as well. Like, put your tail between your legs and go home, scumbags. That would be wonderful if a judge were to actually just, break it down at a human level. But I don't know. Does it affect Paizo? I mean, it sure sounds like, we know for a fact that Paizo is affected. For two reasons. One, there's literally a list of 128 publishers. We're gonna go over here. We'll go to my. So there's literally a list. So this is the article from EN World. You can look it up. It's not hard. And like, look, put the link in the chat. Put the link in the description. Yeah, okay. If you can't find this, then I apologize. I will come to your house and help you use Google. Actually, I'll probably try to put links, but I can't promise it. Anyway, go to EN World. There's this article. They literally list, there are 128 companies all listed here. Many of them I've never heard of before, but I'm not super worldly or informed on all the different publishing companies. But some of these I definitely recognize. Some of them, like Marvel Comics, I recognize some of these companies. 128 companies that are being affected by the Diamond distribution thing. And Paizo is one of them. I can find it in the list. Paizo is one of them. They're absolutely affected. Goodman Games is in this list. Where are they? Goodman Games is here. I imagine Roll for Combat's on this list. They should be. I know they're affected. Yeah. So a lot of people are being affected by this. Big people are being affected by this. So yeah, the answer is yes. Paizo is affected, and we also know because Paizo has literally put out an update on their website where they literally talk about this. Paizo have partnered. They partnered in the past. They probably won't be anymore, not after this sleazebaggery. They have partnered with Diamond to sell their products into the book trade, right? Bookstores, basically. Diamond has also sold Pathfinder and Starfighter into Amazon for us. And now it is saying Paizo has stopped shipping products to Diamond. I would imagine that as soon as Diamond declared bankruptcy, that everybody stopped sending them products. Like, I don't know why you wouldn't, because they're but I don't know how that all works. And then this means that our August releases will not be widely available at major bookstores or on Amazon. That's gotta be huge. That's gotta be huge, because that's a big distribution channel. So that has to affect them in some way. Now, so let's see. Then it talks about that. And then they also think that we expect Pathfinder and Starfighter products to remain unavailable through book trade channels for several months as they determine their next steps, and then this matter works with your bankruptcy court. So it sounds like they're kind of, Paizo's a little bit in limbo at the moment, per their official statement. I would imagine they're making plans. They're like, if this, and that, then the other. I mean, that's what I would do. Absolutely. If my main distributor is suddenly like, we're done and we're not shipping your product for a while, we would immediately have a war room meeting and be like, okay, what are we doing? We have to have a plan to keep the lights on. So they probably, but I don't know what they're going to do. Find a different distributor. But the problem is, even if you find a different distributor, you're out tons of inventory. You're out crap tons of inventory. I have no idea how much inventory, Paizo has sitting at Diamond's warehouses. We do have an idea of how much inventory Roll for Combat has there, because he said very publicly in his YouTube video recently how much, and this article quoted him. So we can do a little bit of math, and I can tell you how many books they have there roughly. So what Roll for Combat has, it says they have approximately $50,000 in potential profit if everything in inventory was sold. All right, and they have approximately $120,000 worth of product in their warehouse. That's the retail value, because what happens is they're only going to get 40% of that. So times 40% is about 50,000, that's how it works. So if the MSRP, let's just make this easy. If the MSRP for a book is $100, and Roll for Combat will only get 40% of that, or $40. Now the MSRP on their books is probably about 60, and so for each book they're going to get 40% of that. That's $24 for each book that Diamond, distributes and sells and stuff. So if we look at the $50,000 in potential profit, that means you have $50,000 divided by 24. They have about 2,000 books at Diamond. 2,000 books sitting at Diamond. Of course, if they sold it themselves at MSRP, then you have $120,000 worth. 2,000 books is a lot. This is not a end of world scenario by any means. I mean, I would consider that I am a small publisher compared to Roll for Combat, and I have a lot more books than that at our warehouse. I have that many books. We have 5 product lines, and I probably have almost 1,000 books on hand for each of them, maybe. Some of them vary, but it's just spitballing. I'm just spitballing without looking at my inventory numbers. So, and Roll for Combat is a much larger publishing company than I am, so they must have way more than that, right? This is just what they happen to be in their warehouse. So I'm not saying this isn't a huge loss for them. This is still a big loss, $50,000 in profit's nothing to scoff at. But they're a bigger publisher than me, so when he says that, like he said that they're going to be fine, they're going to be able to fulfill their Kickstarters and all this kind of stuff, I believe that because, it makes sense. The numbers make sense to me. So, but yeah, we know that this is what they're looking at. Now, if you look at Paizo is much bigger. I don't know how much bigger, but they're definitely bigger than Roll for Combat. So how much money does Paizo have tied up at Diamond? We don't know. So how big of an impact is that going to be? I don't know. It's a big loss in profit, that's for sure. A big loss in product. So how much it's going to affect them? I have no idea. It really just depends on how much they depend on Diamond and how much they depend on other distribution channels or on their store sales. Because I can at least speak to the way that I sell my products. Most of my product, I do have some things on Amazon. We're starting to get things on Amazon. I only have 2 of our books on Amazon currently, but I'm working on getting the other ones. But most of our books just sell directly through my storefront. That's where I sell all the books. And where was I going with that? But if I had, that's where I was going. If I had most of my books at Diamond, I would be done. Like I would probably, my company would be over. I would have no recourse. literally would have no recourse. So for instance, many of you know that I recently tried to do a Kickstarter for a board game, and it did not go as anticipated, and I had to cancel it. And we lost a lot of money on that. However, I was able to run a store sale afterwards to try to recoup some of those losses, and that helped a lot. But it was contingent upon me having product to sell to recoup those losses. So if you imagine you're a publisher and you have 90% of your inventory at Diamond, and then they just take it all, right? What are you gonna do? All of your books are gone. Now, if you have a huge amount of capital set aside, right, then you can order reprints. Or you could take out loans to order reprints. That's always a possibility, always a possibility. Now, in my case, Paizo obviously operates at a much larger, higher level than I do, right? So I would assume they have enough capital set aside to do reprints as needed, or they could for sure take out loans, I would imagine, unless they're already saddled with a lot of loans, and they might not be able to get credit any further. It's possible, I don't know. I know that in my case, if 90% of my inventory just disappeared overnight and was gone, I would not have the capital to order reprints. I just wouldn't. Not to replace all of it for sure. I might be able to order, because if you're going to order reprints, you have to order like a minimum quantity of usually 1,500 books is usually what it is. So you got to have about, what is that, $15,000 sitting around? What would that be? Let me get my calculator again. So if I have to order 1,500 books and they cost me about $4 each, that's $6,000. Oh, maybe that's not that bad. That's not that bad, I suppose. What did I do? I ordered reprints at one point, and it was $15,000. I think I was ordering reprints of 2 different books at the same time or something. But anyway, you got to have at least a little bit of capital sitting around if you're going to order reprints. But here's the thing. Ordering reprints, this is using offset printing, usually takes several months to get the reprints. Especially, from the time you place the order, they got to get you scheduled on the press, they got to print it, they got to ship it to you, it's several months. And so how long, if you have no product to sell, we're pretending that 90% of your product was lost to Diamond because they just decided to take it. If that happens, even if you have the capital to order reprints, it's going to be several months probably before you actually have them and are able to sell them. And you have to float your business. You have to have cash flow in the meantime. If you don't have, the thing is that you have some books in your own warehouse, right? Or some books in stores and stuff, but there's going to be a period of time where your cash flow goes down significantly because there was a gap in inventory, right? Where the books ran out and more books hadn't arrived yet, and you have this gap in inventory. And you're going to lose a bunch of money, and you have to keep paying your employees. You have to keep paying. Now, Paizo, I think, is 100% work from home. I don't think they have company headquarters anymore, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. So I could be wrong. But the last I talked to some of those guys, they were just all work from home. So at least they don't have like rent or like a mortgage or a business lease or something, I suppose. But yeah, if you were, I'm not saying Paizo hasn't lost 90% of their stuff. I guarantee you, they have a bunch of stuff in their own warehouses, I'm sure, because they sell stuff online too. But if a publisher did lose 90% of their stuff to Diamond, and I am sure that's possible for some of these publishers, that they're on the hook for a large percent of their inventory, they're going to be in big trouble. That's a big trouble. If it happened to me, I would just be done. I wouldn't have any recourse. If all of my inventory disappeared, I'd be like, well, I'm not selling any of my old books anymore until I did a Kickstarter or something to like make some capital or something. I don't know. Haunted News says, hasn't Diamond been in trouble for a while? A few years now, I thought. Yes, they have. That's my understanding, at least. So I found this one article. I was reading up on this, and this article right here that I found was from the Baltimore Banner. It says Maryland's Diamond Comic Distributors had a monopoly. How did it go bankrupt? Yeah, they had a monopoly. There was actually, where was it? There was I forget where it was, but there was one point in time when they were on the radar of there was a federal agency who's responsible for antitrust issues. They were on their radar, but no action was taken. Yeah, beginning in the mid 1990s, Diamond operated as a de facto monopoly in the eyes of just about everyone but the federal government. So yeah, they had a monopoly on some distribution. And all the way at the end of this, I scrolled all the way to the end of this, and it definitely started to talk about how, it was the U.S. Justice Department, it sounds like they investigated them in the 1990s for antitrust issues. But it sounds like, yes, for several years, it sounds like it was beginning in the COVID time period, Diamond's troubles started to manifest. And then this article talked a little bit, and I think it was talking a little bit about their competition. They were the monopoly, they were the giant, and then competition started to compete, and that caused problems with them. And then this part of the article starts to talk about how they started to lose customers. So DC Comics left them and went to Lunar, which I presume is a different publishing or a distribution company. And then Marvel is distributing its comic books through Penguin Random House. And then in 2023, the third largest publisher switched Image, the third largest publisher switched to Lunar. So Diamond was losing big publishers. They were losing big publishers, probably because they weren't keeping up with the times. They weren't innovating. They were just they were resting on their laurels. They were doing what lots of big companies that have monopolies do. They don't innovate. And then little guys, I don't think Penguin Random House is the little guy, but companies that do innovate and companies that do try to keep up with the times snipe their clients because, they're more appealing because they're keeping up with the times. And so that was kind of the end right around 2023. So the point is that yes, you're right. You're totally right that for at least several years, Diamond was struggling. And so that's why when they declared bankruptcy at the beginning of this year, it probably shouldn't have been a surprise to anybody because the struggle bus had began a while ago. So you're totally right. I've never heard of Lunar either. I haven't either. I'm just assuming that they're a big distributor. Otherwise, why would DC Comics go with them? Maybe they're not. Maybe they're a little guy. They just happened to land the big customer just because they were better than Diamond. I don't know. Charlie Brown says the best case scenario, you could sell PDFs of your products to stay afloat. Yeah, you could. That's very true. You absolutely could. You could. I will tell you, dude, as a publisher, that PDFs sell, they do, but books sell better. They sell way better. Physical books sell the bomb. Like, if I look at my sales, I'm just going to spitball here. I would say that 80% of my sales are physical books. 20% are PDFs, probably. I've never actually punched those numbers, so you're gonna have to take that with a grain of salt. But I'm just kind of spitballing. I know that like when I do look at sales reports, at the top of the list of sales are physical books. Like I can see them. Boom, Lairs and Legends 2, Lairs and Legends. Secret Art of Game Mastery. I see those up there. Boom, 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 boom. So PDFs are not going to float the boat for too long. But the best thing you could do, and Paizo mentions this on their little site they put there, but the best thing you can do to help support these companies is to go to their sites directly and buy directly from them. So I can tell you that Paizo, they have stuff at Diamond, but the thing is that Paizo only gets probably 40% of the retail price for a book that you buy at a bookstore or that you buy from Amazon. They only get about 40% probably. If you buy directly from Paizo, if you go to paizo.com to buy from their website, same for Goodman Games. If you go to Goodman Games website and buy directly from them, if you go any of these publishers that are in trouble, if you go directly to their websites and buy from them, and I'm assuming that they all allow you to, they should, that's where you make good money, selling directly on your website. But if you go directly to their website and you buy directly from them, they're going to get 100% of your price. right? They got to pay taxes and stuff, you know, but that revenue goes to them, directly to them. There's no middleman that's taking a big, massive cut. So if you want to support these companies, that's what you do. You go directly to their sites and you buy directly from them. That's always the best way to support companies you like. Like if you're a Paizo guy and you love Pathfinder or Starfinder, or if you love Dungeon Crawl Classics, like the best way to support those companies right now, forget about right now, the best way to support them, period, end of story, is always to go directly to their sites and buy directly from them. You know, like you can go to a Barnes and Noble and buy the book for $60, or you can go to Paizo.com or Goodman Games and buy it for $60. I would always want to buy it from the website because they're getting more of the money. They're getting more of the money, and it's going to support that company. It makes sense, but they mentioned that on their page too, the way to support them. Dane says physical books are better than PDFs. I love physical books too. I have PDFs of a lot of stuff, but I don't like the PDFs. I'd rather have a physical book. Who's Lunar? It sounds like the name of a VTuber. What is a VTuber? I know what a YouTuber is, but what's a VTuber? Is that's a different thing that I apparently don't know what it is? AJ Silver Radio. Ha! Cranky Smurf, you're the man, dude. Cranky Smurf says PDFs are convenient, but they're not so great reading on the toilet compared to books. 100% agree. 100% agree. Yeah, I'm not gonna say any more about that except that I agree. Jonathan says, honestly, I wish Paizo will do what Wizards of the Coast and Darrington Press is doing to warehouse everything under their own roof so there is no middleman. But warehousing is kind of cheap, dude. Warehousing isn't that expensive. Here's the thing. Let me tell you. I warehouse a bunch of books. And I know what it costs. And it's not that much compared to having my own warehouse that I would have to build. I'd have to have the land for, I'd have to build, I'd have to maintain it. I would have to staff my own warehouse crew, the people that drive the fork trucks, the high-lows, you know, the logistics office, that run all the people that talk to different carriers and stuff, that do all the shipments and things. You know, I would have to staff all of that. Even for a mid-sized company, like Paizo's not a small company. They're not gigantic, but they're not small. But having to build your own warehouse and staff your own warehouse, that's bonkers. That's the sort of thing you outsource, man. You outsource that crap. And there's also a point where you have to stick in your lane. You know what I mean? It's like, focus on doing what you're good at doing. Like, what are you first and foremost? You're a TTRPG company, aren't you? You should probably focus on that. Stick in your lane, really focus on that, and if you can grow that to big old Bajangas levels, and then you have some serious revenue coming in, then you can be like, okay, this is what we pay in having a third party do our warehousing and fulfillment. If we were to invest in our own and build our own, or buy a warehouse and then staff crew, it would cost this. At some point, as the company grows, more than likely, there's probably the tipping point where you go from cheaper and cost-effective, paying somebody else to do warehousing and fulfillment, and there's going to be a tipping point where that gets higher than it would be if you did it yourself. And at that point, you might do it yourself, maybe, right? But again, that's something else you got to think about and focus on. Whereas if you pay somebody else to do it, it's like you don't got to worry about it. As long as it's happening and it's working and smoothly, it's a black box, you know. They have the books, they get the orders, they ship it out, they send you a bill, it's a black box. You don't have to pay attention to it at all except to know that it's working. As long as it's working, you can focus on making your products. So like, but at a certain point, yes, you're gonna have to, you get big enough and you're like, okay, I gotta think about, should we do our own warehousing, right? But it's like right now, like another comparison. So I publish books. And we need people. We have a guy that does our interior layout and design, right? He's part-time, right? He probably works on laying out our products for, you know, I don't know, a day or two, maybe 3 days a month, right? So you say, well, instead of just hiring him as a contractor, why don't you hire him full-time? Well, we don't need him full-time. You know what I mean? It doesn't make financial sense to do that. So in a similar way, it doesn't make financial sense to, like, you know, build or buy and staff and run your own warehouse until you get big enough. You know, if we publish tons of products, then maybe it would make sense to have a staff person who does layout and design, but that's a lot of products. Because layout and design isn't that hard. It doesn't take that much time. Once you have a template, things just go quickly, man. So, like, to have a full-time staff person doing it, you gotta have a lot of work. A lot of books you're publishing, a lot of stuff is flowing through that pipeline, you know? Climate control for books, yeah, that's probably important. If you're in a place that's super humid, that could be very bad for books. Mithril Gaming says, what's been happening with your campaigns? I haven't been checking on it lately. What, my D&D campaigns and stuff? Well, my D&D campaign is a private one. Nobody can watch that except for the players themselves. And my Shadow Dark campaign is also private, so nobody can watch that except the players. I do voice recordings, so the players can hear the sessions, so they can keep. If they miss a game session, they can listen to it. The only game session in the mind that I run and that's public is my Pathfinder 2 Thieves Abound session, and that game session you can watch on my second YouTube channel, the DM Lair Streams or the DM Lair Plays, or something like that. I'm not giving you a recap though. Go watch the latest session. If there's any other ideas or thoughts you had about this diamond thing, let me know. I might have some other thoughts on it too. But right now, I'm just gonna kind of read some of your guys' comments and stuff in the chat, and we'll go from there. But I saw one where is it? Oh, are you building anything for Daggerheart or TTRPG exclusive with Daggerheart in mind? No, I'm not. Here's the thing. In order to, well, there are two things. Maybe I have three things. In order to create content for a game system, you need to know the game system. You have to, ideally, you know the game system very well. Now, you could contract other people that know it very well to create the content for you, and then you'd have to trust them that it's good and accurate because you don't know it yourself. And there's a certain part where you have to let go and just trust other people to do their work. But there's also a point at which you kind of want to know what you're publishing too. So, like, if I should back up a second. I am only passingly familiar with Daggerheart and its rules and how it works. I have a little bit of information. I was literally today listening to videos by Dungeon Craft, and Baron Darop had a video where they were giving a review of Daggerheart. There was another YouTuber who was talking about his experience with Daggerheart, and then there was another really big TTRPG YouTuber who was going to talk about their campaign, but their video style I could not. My wife, we watched their video for like 30 seconds, and my wife was like, this is giving me a headache. Because it was like constantly changing like the scenes. They were doing tons of sound effects, and it's a big YouTuber, very well known. And like, I was like, and my wife was like, please, can we stop watching this? It's hurting my head. And I was like, I agree, I can't. I told her is, I am not the target audience for this video. Because the video and that YouTuber is very big, but I think that their video style appeals to younger people would be my guess. Because as an oldish man, like, I could not take it. I wanted give me a talking head with all the flashing lights and like sound effects and tomfoolery. I just want a couple talking heads, just tell me what's up. And so I couldn't watch that. But anyway, point was I was listening to some people's reviews about Daggerheart. And what was I gonna say? But that's it. That's all I know about it. I don't know any more about it. So for me to publish something for Daggerheart is kind of hard when you don't know a whole bunch about the system, you know? And I was actually, my thought today is that I actually should probably, when I'm going to Gen Con, I should probably try to play in some Daggerheart games if I can find some openings, because they might all be full at this point. I'm always like so far behind in signing up for games at Gen Con, at any convention I go to. I'm always way behind the curve on signing up for games. And a lot of times when I go in there to try to find a game, there aren't any games that appeal to me. And Daggerheart just released somewhat recently-ish, so I'm sure it's like people are all wanting to play it right now. But that's something I should probably do. What was I gonna say? So it's hard for me to publish something about Daggerheart when I don't really know a whole lot about it. And I also do too much. I publish stuff for 5th edition. I publish stuff for Pathfinder 2. You know, I'm playing a lot of Shadow Dark and really liking it. And there's only so much you can do. Like, how many game systems are you going to try to publish content for? It's a big burden on your team. It's a big burden on you. You know, and I only really want to, at this point, I only really want to publish things or do things that I'm excited about. I'm getting to the point where, like, I still have to do certain things at this point in my business, in my life, to pay the bills and keep the lights on. But I'm starting to tip over that threshold where I have a lot less patience for doing things that I don't like, as a business or as a person, I suppose. I have a lot less patience for and regard for that, and I'm more tilting into, I'm going to do the things that I care about and the things that I like, as opposed to the things that I know will make me money or whatever, you know. And at this point, like, I'll have to play Shadow Dark a little, not Shadow Dark. I'll have to play Daggerheart a little bit, but some of the things that I was listening about in these reviews kind of soured me a little bit. I'm not gonna lie. There were some things that, as I was listening to it, I played so many TTRPGs. I've played TTRPGs so much, you know. I know how these things work. And as they were talking about some of these mechanics and stuff, I was like, wait a second. That right there is gonna slow combat down a lot. I was thinking that for one of the things they were saying. And then sure enough, like 10 seconds later, you know, what was it, Dungeon Craft and Baron Darop were like, and it slowed combat down. And I was like, oh, yep, there it was. I knew that was gonna happen, and then they confirmed it, you know. And there were some other things where I was thinking, so I don't know. I have to play it, but as I was listening to these reviews, I was kind of like, I don't know if that's the game system for me. Because look, I do not want a rules-heavy game system at this point in my life. Like, I have played rules-heavy games such as Dungeons and Dragons and Pathfinder 2 for a while now, for like forever. That's what I've played, are rules-heavy games. And now that I'm getting into Shadow Dark, I am seeing the amazingness that is not having a ton of rules hanging over your head. It frees you up in many ways. It makes gameplay smoother and faster and more exciting. And it just, and there are a whole bunch of benefits to it, but I am really digging the idea of rules light systems where the rules don't get in the way, where you can just run a quick combat and you can do this, that, and the other, and you're not looking up rules or arguing over rules and stuff, and the game master is just making decisions, you know. And there is obviously DM fiat, and you have to trust your game master. And if you have a bad game master in a rules light system, yes, they can abuse it, and it would suck. I get it. But these rules heavy systems just, now that I've played rules light systems, it's like, oh my gosh, give me the rules light system. It's so much more fun. It's easier to run the game. It's easier to prep the game. It makes the game master's job easier, and it's more fun. Oh my goodness. And there's more flexibility, versatility with rules light, you know, and I don't know, I can just go on about it. So my point is this: I don't think that Daggerheart would be considered a rules light game. It would be considered at least rules medium, if not rules heavy. However, there's no real measurement spectrum for how that goes, right? There's no way to measure that. It's just all personal subjectivity and opinion, I suppose. But it feels medium, you know, at least on par. Well, here's an example of why. So like, if you hit a creature and then you roll a damage die of like a 1d6 plus 3, you roll that damage die out, but that's not the damage you do. You have to consult a chart that tells you whether you did 1 damage or maybe 2, but most of the time you just do 1. So it's like, that is a level of like, why don't you just, if you hit the creature, just say you do 1 damage, unless it was a crit or something, and then you do 2. You know, but you, so that's an example of like rules that like why this is more complex. It seems like at the surface, at least from I guess fairly uninformed person just hearing about it for the first time, it seems like, why would you do that? I don't understand that. I mean, I know they have reasons. You always have reasons, but it just seems like it adds a level of complexity that, did it have to be that way? Wasn't there a simple, why wouldn't you do it simpler if you could? You know, so I don't know. Daggerheart is heavy narrative, but medium crunch combat. What do you mean it's heavy narrative? What does that mean? Simon Rogers, you say it's heavy narrative. Can you explain what you mean by that? What do you mean by it's heavy narrative? Israel, what are you saying? You, Luke, come back. What does that mean? Simon says Jeremy Crawford and Chris Perkins are on board. Yeah, both Jeremy Crawford and Chris Perkins went over to Daggerheart. They're working at Daggerheart now. I mean, I think it's obvious. Like Dungeons and Dragons, Wizards of the Coast, Hasbro is struggling right now. It's very clear that they're struggling financially, and my guess is there are going to be more layoffs at Hasbro, Wizards of the Coast. And I'm sure Jeremy Crawford and Chris Perkins they both retired. Not they didn't retire. They both resigned from Wizards of the Coast of their own volition. That's my understanding. It's been a hot second, so I don't recall the details. But they decided to leave is the long and short of it. And my guess is that at the level they were at, they probably saw the writing on the wall that their livelihood wasn't safe at Wizards of the Coast. That would be my guess. And they also were very well compensated, almost assuredly. And the thing is that when a company is going to do slimming of the ranks, so to speak, they're doing it to save money. And so the people that make a lot of money, they're going to be considered, heavily considered. Do we really need to keep the person that makes $200,000 or whatever? Do we really need them? Or can we get rid of them and then hire somebody and pay them $60,000 and they can do the same job? Will it be the same level of quality? Maybe not, but save a lot of money, and that's what bean counters like. So they probably saw the writing on the wall, but you're right, they're at Daggerheart now. Or I should say Darrington Press is where they technically work. Dana Misson says, I don't understand the hype of Daggerheart. Yes, Critical Role and Darrington Press designed it, but I don't understand the logics why they designed it that way. I don't either. You know, there was an interesting comment. I was listening to a video today where they were talking, they had ran a campaign and they had run some games and stuff in Daggerheart. And one of the comments that this YouTuber said, and I thought it was very well spoken, they were talking about how the game actually played. And what he said was, I would expect that, so his comment was that Daggerheart has a level of crunch to it and slowness in certain ways because of that crunch, in so much that it would not probably lend itself very well to actual plays. You know, when you have something that's super crunchy and time consuming, it gets in the way of narrative. It can get in the way of game flow. It can get in the way of pacing. It can get in the way of exciting combat. You know, the last thing you want when the combat and everything is tense is for like rules to bog things down and make the game take longer, you know? And so his comment was that it was surprising to him that a game system designed by a company basically of actual players wasn't actually probably that good for an actual play. And then he gave an example of a different system that I'm not even familiar with that he said was probably way better for actual plays. But yeah, it seemed interesting. Somebody, who was that? Dane? Yeah, it says, I don't understand the logics of why they designed it that way. Yeah, it's really interesting because I think it's clear that Critical Role must have intended Daggerheart to be the replacement for D&D 5th edition for their own campaign. Like, if I'm not mistaken, they just ended campaign 3 and they're going to start on campaign 4, right? And so when campaign 4 comes, it's got to be in Daggerheart, right? right? Why wouldn't you run your own game system as your next big campaign? It's like a no-brainer for promoting your product. Like, why wouldn't you? And yet at the same time, at least from this person's comment, it sounds like it maybe was not designed super well for that venue. But I don't know. Well, I mean, we'll obviously see. All right, let's see what's going on in the comment here. Yes, Ryan, you're right. Wizards of the Coast is going to a franchise model now, whatever that means. I know. We're going to take a look at that article in a little bit because I have that pulled up. I was going to take a look at that. And when I read that they were going to a franchise model, I was like, what does that mean exactly? What does that mean? Now, there is a LinkedIn post. I should actually probably look up the LinkedIn post and see if we can dig into that a little bit. I mean, at the surface level, I understand conceptually what a franchise model is, I guess. But it seems like saying we're going to a franchise model, but you also sell books and stuff and magic cards. So how do those fit under that umbrella of franchise model, right? Because a pure franchise model means, in my opinion, well, you know, maybe we should save this discourse for when we actually look at the article. No, Paizo's not going bankrupt. They're just getting screwed by Diamond, or Diamond is trying to screw them and 120 other publishers out of product that is in Diamond's warehouses. So no, Paizo's not going bankrupt. I mean, I don't think they are. But I 100% guarantee you, that some of the, so July 21st is my understanding, if I remember the date correctly, July 21st, Diamond is going to court to try to legally steal, all of the publishers' books that are currently in their warehouses, sell them, and then use all of the proceeds to pay off their creditors, such as Chase Bank. And then all the publishers, 128 publishers, will get nothing from those sales. So on July 21st, that's what Diamond's trying to do. And then those publishers are going to be able to go to the court also and make their arguments of why Diamond should not be allowed to do that. But it sounds like there's legal precedent that will allow them to do that. Actually, so one of the things, let me see. I did want to look at this because this is the, what do you want to call it? The legalese, the fine print, the technicality that Diamond is relying upon. So in this paragraph right here, so they say, in its filing, Diamond says it is in possession of significant inventory that was shipped on a consignment basis, and that consignors have not satisfied the requirement under applicable law to perfect their interests in the consigned inventory. Some legal terms for you. Diamond claims that this gives them the right to transfer title, that's ownership, to this inventory free and clear of the consignor's interests. So, translation, Diamond says that because the consignors have not satisfied the legal requirements, that allows them to transfer title, transfer ownership to Diamond, to themselves, and the consignors have no interest. That means no claim to profits, the cost when the sales and stuff, you know. So Diamond is saying that because they didn't, satisfy the requirements, that they can do this. And then it goes on and it says, essentially, some important paperwork, a UCC1 financing statement, was not filed by consignment vendors like Marvel, DCC, and the tabletop gaming companies mentioned earlier prior to the bankruptcy in January. So there's this special, and we're going to talk about this document a little bit, but there's a special document but nobody filled out. And because they didn't fill it out, Diamond is claiming that gives them legal right to seize their inventory and sell it and keep the proceeds and pay their creditors. And this means that they forfeit their rights to the stock in question because they didn't sign this paperwork. Diamond filing says none of the vendors that provided consigned inventory to any of the debtors filed a UCC1 financing statement against any of the debtors prior to the petition date. Now, and it sounds like what I've heard is that there is legal precedent for this happening. And so it sounds like Diamond is probably going to be successful in stealing this inventory. It's legal theft. And the court will approve it, but it is theft nonetheless, in my opinion. No, Haunted News says, I bet that document was deep in the fine print. It may have been, but here's the thing. I looked up this document and I read a little bit about it and what it was supposed to do and stuff. A UCC, let's try to zoom in a little bit. A UCC1 is a public filing that notifies third parties of a creditor's secured interest in a debtor's personal assets. UCC1 forms are used mainly to simplify collection processes. They must be filed with agencies in the state where the borrower's business is incorporated. There are two types of UCC1 statements: blanket liens and liens attached to specific collateral. So, you know, this is technical terms that are a little bit above my pay grade, I suppose. But it went through this whole thing and I was like, this sounds complicated. Is it really that complicated? Is it really that complicated? And I asked ChatGPT, which may or may not be accurate, about whether it is actually complicated or not. And this is what it told me. It said filling out a UCC1 financing statement is not very complicated, but it must be done precisely to be legally effective. Here's what you need to know. It usually just has 1 to 2 pages. It's 1 to 2 pages long. Debtor's name and address, secured party's name and address, collateral description, filing jurisdiction. I think this is the part, the collateral description, that is going to be I don't know how that works, because, like, you know, if you're shipping inventory in and out of a place, it's going to be changing on a fairly constant basis. So I don't know if you have to, like, constantly be refiling this or how this works. But according to ChatGPT, so big grain of salt because sometimes it gets things very wrong, this isn't very hard, and yet nobody was doing it. So why weren't, if it's not that hard, why weren't they doing it? It's very interesting to me. Yes, Ellis Hawkins, you are right. Eli Hawkins. We need a Legal Eagle video on this one, 100%. I would love Legal Eagle to do a breakdown on this. That dude is awesome. He's got some energy and pizzazz, doesn't he? That guy is sweet. Yes, I wish he would do something on this, because I don't understand it. It's like, it seems like a no-brainer to me. If you're at least if you're not a mom and shop company, you know, and filing this thing isn't that onerous, but it's massively important not to have your inventory stolen, why wouldn't you do it? You know, that's a great question. Come on, get up here. Well, Legal Eagle, I've only ever seen one guy do it. He's the lawyer guy who has, like, all of that excitement and pizzazz. There's other people that they do it. I mean, I've only watched a couple of his videos, to be fair. Oh yeah, Max Blaze. That is a great analogy. Max says, can you imagine parking your car in a pay lot? They go bankrupt and take your car to pay their bills. That is a perfect analogy. That's a perfect analogy. Yes, it's so messed up. It's so messed up. I'd be stealing my car back. I'd go steal my car back and sneak in there and get my car back, man. Middle of the night, I'm getting that sucker back. Brian Dixon says, Wizards of the Coast is a dumpster fire. I mean, you're not going to get any argument from me. Perkins and Crawford saw the ship sinking and jumped onto the big new rising ship. Yes. Probably. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Daggerheart, Darrington Press, Critical Role. They are the rising tide. They are absolutely on the way up. 100%. 100%. I see dollar signs on that company. So yeah, Perkins and Crawford were like, our ship is going down. We should go make friends over here. 100%. You gotta protect your livelihood, man. They got families. You got loved ones. You got children, crap like that, man. You gotta think about that stuff. You can't just be like, you know, whatever. I'm gonna be company loyal, even though we go down the tubes and they might lay me off. You know, they might decide that I'm the sacrificial lamb. Who knows? Wizards of the Coast could do something completely harebrained, tick off half of the internet again, and they need a sacrificial lamb. And they tap Chris Perkins on the shoulder and be like, hey buddy, guess what? You're the guy. We're gonna hang you out to dry. They've done that before. They've done that before. So like, why would it? You know, it's like, hey, man. So yeah, dude, I don't think you couldn't pay me enough to work for that company. Does Cobalt Press use Diamond, or do they sell direct? I primarily just back all their Kickstarters for TOV. Well, we can find out. There's literally a list right here. Not right there. There's a list right here of Cobalt Press. I don't know. I didn't hear that they were. So if they were, no, they're not. It doesn't look like they do. So no, Cobalt Press doesn't seem like they're affected by it. There's like a, if you go to EN World, there's a article about it. And then there's a big list of all 128 distributors that are affected by it. But Cobalt Press is not on the list, so they should be fine. They should be fine. Daggerheart honestly looks like it would make great live plays if everyone is proficient in the rules. I mean, we'll find out. Yeah, we'll find out. I don't know. I don't know the system well enough to like give my opinion on it. I was just talking previously about what another YouTuber had said. If everyone is proficient in the rules. Everybody kind of knows one of the big criticisms of Critical Role in the early days is that they broke a lot of D&D rules and they didn't seem to know the rules that well, you know? So, but this is their own game system. I think I'm gonna wager a guess that they probably know their own rules, but they didn't write the rules. I mean, they hired other game designers to do the rules and stuff. They were probably in on the meetings and all the planning and stuff for sure. They want to have some creative control over what they're publishing, but like they didn't write them themselves. They were paying other people to do that, you know? So they're not going to be, it's possible they're not going to be intimately familiar with everything, and especially not memorize them all, you know, until they've played it a while. Because even if you wrote the rules yourself, you can make a strong argument that like you're still not going to know everything by heart until you've played that game system for a while. Because there's a lot of rules in books that big, you know. You can't just be expected to remember everything, even if you designed it yourself. So I'm sure that it's gonna be herky-jerky with their knowledge of the rules as campaign 4 begins. I would expect that. It just makes sense, you know. So I would not be, I at least wouldn't be too critical if they screwed up rules and stuff with some frequency of their own game system, because yeah, it's hard. It's not easy. Cranky Smurf says, I think there's only one designer at Wizards of the Coast who has worked on or played older editions. All of their experienced people are gone. Yeah, well, when your company is in trouble, you know, and you're downsizing and you're reducing your staff, like I mentioned before, you want to reduce, if you can, you want to reduce people with the biggest paychecks. And usually, the longer a person has been at a company, the more they make. And so you want to get rid of those people if you can, and then, you know, either delegate, give their responsibilities to someone else, without increasing their salary. Companies do that all the time. Or giving them like, oh, you know what, we're going to, okay, so you make 80,000 and we're gonna give you all of Chris Perkins' responsibilities. Congratulations, you're getting a promotion. And then guess what? You get a 7% bump with that promotion. And you're just sitting there, you're like, wait a second. I inherited 100% of the work of somebody else, and I'm getting a 7% raise. That's right. Aren't you happy to work here? And that's not necessarily a knock on Wizards, because I shouldn't say all, many companies do that sort of thing. I think that's pretty common. So that wouldn't surprise me if something like that happened. And they wanted to say, it's a promotion. Ton more work, 7% bump. And then when yearly merit increases come around in March, you're not going to get your 3 or 4%, because they're going to tell you, oh, you know what? We actually just gave you a bump as part of your promotion back in July, or it would have probably been June. So we're actually not going to give you a merit increase right now because you just got one a little bit ago. Companies do that. They screw you over, baby. They do that sort of thing, man. They do. So yeah, it's rough. Wizards of the Barbados says Wizards of the Coast MVPs working for Darrington Press. I'm curious to know what they'll do. Critical Role already made Daggerheart. Yeah, I don't know. Well, there's always supplements. Supplements are a big part of the game system. You know, printing books. You know, more stuff. You keep printing stuff, keep making money. People keep buying stuff. So you got to make adventures. You got to make adventure modules. You got to make anthologies. You got to make new classes, new character options, new player options, new spells. You know, new monsters, monster manuals. You know, bestiaries, compendiums. Like, there's a whole bunch of stuff you can. And I guarantee you, like, Darrington Press must have a publishing schedule, at least internally, if not publicly facing, where they've planned out what they plan to do, what's on their radar for the things they want to publish, and when they want to publish them. Like, they must have that plan made out. Like, I would be shocked out of my mind if they don't, you know. So, and you can, yeah. So they're gonna get Chris Perkins and Jeremy Crawford to do some work for them. Yeah, maybe. Cranky Smurf says, I suspect Wizards of the Coast will use AI despite saying they won't. You know, I got news for you, dude. Eventually, everybody's going to be using it. It's a matter of time, baby. It's a matter of time. That's just the way it's going to be. So, now it's one thing to say you won't and do it anyway. Yes. Satori says, am I the only one who feels that Daggerheart is a bit too overhyped right now? I'm sticking to D&D, but it seems a lot of people are overselling the game, besides Dungeon Craft. Yeah, Dungeon Craft's not overselling it. There was another YouTuber I was listening to today that was not overselling it either. If I ever play it, I'm not going to oversell it. I'll tell you my actual thoughts. But right now, it's like, it's interesting. It's interesting because, yes, I bet you that there are some people that are overhyping it, and they're giving you like the laundry list of amazingness for it, even if there were aspects of it that they didn't like. And I think that's in a way that's natural, because do you really want to be the guy that like criticizes Critical Role and Daggerheart? Do you really want to be that guy? Because, dude, they got millions of fans. They're an up and coming star. Do you really want to get yourself off on the wrong foot with them? So, like, you got to think, right? Am I going to do that? Is that something that I'm going to do? You know, or am I going to play it safe and I'm going to stay in their good graces? Like, these are things you have to think about. Now, I'm not saying one way is better than the other. You know, one is certainly more genuine if you just do what you believe and do how you feel. But if you're running a business, that could have consequences, you know? It's kind of like, look at when the whole OGL thing was happening. Critical Role had business connections, and they probably had projects in flight with Wizards of the Coast. And so Critical Role's statement about the OGL was, it condemned it in between the lines. They walked a fine line of not saying something too overt that would compromise their business dealings with Wizards of the Coast. But if you read between the lines, it was clear that they were not happy, to say the least, that Wizards of the Coast was doing the whole OGL scandal thing, you know? And that's just an example of, like, we have business interests that, you know, like, we as human beings might feel a certain way about something, but we also have business interests. And if you torpedo that, that could lead to severe repercussions for everybody who works for us, for lots of people, and you got to walk a line there, you know? So yeah, it makes sense to me. I feel like right now there's probably going to be, well, you might have honest reviews of Daggerheart where they're like, I like this, I like this, I like this, but I didn't like that, I didn't like that, I didn't like that. But it's easier to either do like the what do you call them? The fanboy approach of like, oh my gosh, it's amazing, and you just go crazy over it, right? Or to do the hit piece where you're like, this sucks, and this is why it sucks. Dunk, 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 dunk. You know, those are for whatever reason, I see the extremes more than I see like a neutral, reasonable approach. I don't know. Uh, but yeah, there does seem to be a lot of hype around it right now. But we'll see. We'll see how it goes. Random commenter says the description of the announcement at Darrington Press, they'll be developing novel game concepts as well as expanding upon the games we released so far. That's like an empty nothing burger. It's a nothing burger. They're gonna work on stuff. Big nothing burger of an announcement of information. Will the company be as big as D&D was in its heyday? Wizards of the Coast or Critical Role's new company, or all those days gone forever? Will any company be as big as D&D? Oh, you know, it's interesting because you have lots of new game systems that have big fan bases developing around them. Like Shadow Dark is turning into a big thing. DC20 did crazy bonkers on its Kickstarter, and I'm sure has a fanatic, rabid fan base that loves DC20. You know, Coach is my friend, so like, yeah, you have the OGL kicked off. I mean, there have always been lots of TTRPGs, but it feels like, to me at least, and it might just be because I'm living it and it's more real to me, but it feels like the OGL scandal really kicked off a renaissance of creation of TTRPGs and people playing a wider variety of TTRPGs instead of only playing one with D&D for the most part. There was obviously variety, but it seems like people are diverging more on which ones they play, and it's splitting. And I think the OGL did that in a large way, and this is so poetic justice. In a large way, Wizards of the Coast, their attempt at greed, their attempt to take the entire market for themselves, has resulted in their losing a massive chunk of the market to other up-and-coming companies that will continue to. I foresee them continuing to do well. You know, Shadow Dark. I think Shadow Dark's only going to do better and better. I see very good things for it. You know, and companies like that, or DC20 and stuff. I think they're gonna do very well, and they're gonna continue to have big fan bases and more. You know, and so Wizards of the Coast really just shot itself. It shot itself in like the foot, and they're just slowly bleeding out as they limp along. They did it themselves, and it's justice. It's justice. They got greedy. The too long didn't read on the scandal. The too long didn't read is Diamond Comic Distributors is attempting to legally steal all of the inventory from publishers, inventory that's currently in their warehouses. They want to take it, they want to sell it, and they want to use that money to pay their creditors, such as Chase Bank, people they owe money to because they're in bankruptcy. And those publishers, they own the inventory. It's their inventory because it was a consignment. Will get nothing from Diamond selling that inventory. And those publishers will lose lots of money. That is what Diamond is attempting to do. On July 21st, there's going to be a court hearing where a judge will determine whether they can or can't. But that's the long and short of it. So there will be, if Diamond is successful, and it sounds like there's legal precedent for this, it sounds like they probably will be allowed to do this. That is going to hurt a lot of our companies, like Roll for Combat, Paizo, Goodman Games, and there's a big list of other companies, 128 of them that will be affected by it. That's the too long didn't read. And I had a whole discourse, a whole soapbox where I talked about how morally reprehensible it was. You know, just this unethical, morally reprehensible sleazeball job of stealing other people's product. You've already mismanaged your company. You're already poopola, and now you're gonna at least hurt financially, if not severely, other companies. Possibly some of these companies, the smaller ones, you know, might just go out of business because of losing a bunch of inventory. Can be catastrophic. It can be. Not necessarily for everybody. A lot of, you know, some companies are big enough or have enough diversification where they keep their inventory and how they sell things that they'll be fine. But it'll still hurt them, you know. So that's like the too long didn't read. It's just horrible. It's absolutely reprehensible. It's reprehensible. Oh, we have a giveaway going on, guys. We're gonna give away $50 DM Lair store credit at the end of the live stream tonight. And all you got to do is there should be a link in the chat from Nightbot where you can join the giveaway. And what is Nightbot doing? Nightbot is dropping links to things that aren't actually active right now. I gotta go see what Nightbot is doing. I have a timer on. What is going on? I have a timer on that should not be on. I just turned it off. Okay. Anyway, there is a link in the chat for the sale. It says you can save up to 50% off. Wait, hold on a second. Oh, what I was gonna say. Oh, yeah, we have a sale going on right now too on the DM Lair store. You can save up to 50% on everything. Oh wait, no, lost my train of thought. I got distracted. There's a link in the description to the giveaway. Join the giveaway. It's free. We'll draw the winner at the end of the live stream. I also want to say that we have a 50% off, up to 50% off store sale on the dmlair.com. So if you want to get some cool stuff, we sell Pathfinder 2 stuff, we sell D&D 5e stuff. We have PDFs, we have physical books, we have Foundry modules, a whole bunch of, we have map packs if you want digital maps. We have lots of map packs. So go over there, up to 50% off, have some fun, get some cool stuff for your games. That giveaway will end tomorrow. Tomorrow is the last day for that giveaway. So, don't wait till the day after tomorrow, because then it's not going to work. Nightbot is broken. No, I had a timer turned on that I was not aware that it was on. Okay, what did I want to look at? I want to look at there was an announcement that D&D is moving to a full franchise model. So I want to look at, sorry. I want to look at that article and just talk about what it might mean and that sort of thing. I need to go bio and fill my coffee or tea up though, so you can just sit here and stare at this screen while I do so. By the way, you're looking at the alt cover for Escape from the Fae. This is our Kickstarter coming up in September. It's planned for September. It should be in September, but this is our Kickstarter. There's a link in the description if you want to go learn more about Escape from the Fae. It'll be really cool. I wrote it. It's really cool. I wrote half of it. Zach wrote the other half. Gotta be fair. But go check that out while I go get my fill. Little guy. Little guy. You are now in the Twilight Zone. We'll all be hallucinating by the time he gets back if we keep staring at this. Well, thank you, Satori. I appreciate that. Yeah, I like this cover. Our artist did an amazing job. This was made by Brendan Lancaster. He does a lot of artwork for us. He's really good. But he did this all cover. This right here is the regular cover, right here. We're still playing around with this exactly, so this it might look a little different. This is a mock-up, obviously, but this is some of the artwork from it. It's beautiful. We got some amazing artists going crazy on this stuff. Oh, little guy's up here. What's up, buddy? How you doing? I don't know. He's just up here bugging me. What's up, little guy? What's up, little guy? What's up, buddy? How you doing? Yeah. Big boy. He just wants attention. Gotta give him some fluffing. Alright. That's enough. You gonna stay up here? Yeah, no, buddy. Come on, buddy. You can't stay up here. There you go. Alright. Alright. See you later, Israel. Okay, let's take a look at this article about D&D going to a full franchise umbrella mode, whatever. There we go. So, former Halo executive takes over D&D and says it's moving to a full franchise model. This is in Wargamer. D&D movies, video games, books, and all other licensed products now live under one roof. I don't know what that means. Says the new core executives usually a lot of times say things that are nothing burgers or that don't mean anything, or maybe they do to other people that know the language they speak, but I don't know. I think this is the guy. I think this is the new executive. What's his name? Dan Ayub, I think is how you pronounce that. So it's Hasbro's former senior vice president of digital games is leading the charge as the new head of D&D. Check that out. The senior VP of digital games is leading the charge as the new head of D&D. Right? He shared the news on a LinkedIn post on January 9th saying, "We shifted our structure internally and D&D moved to a full franchise model. Meaning everything. Books, video games, film, and TV, everything touching the franchise lives under one roof." I don't care about lives under one roof. That's nothing. That's a nothing statement. Okay, but what does this mean? So I understand video games get franchised, movies get franchised, TV gets franchised. Those are all franchise things. But what I want to zoom in on, what I don't think that I quite understand, is when it says in the context of D&D, when books are moving to a franchise model, what does that mean? Does that mean that they're going to franchise the D&D name to another company so that that company can make adventure modules, supplements? Will they perhaps give franchise rights to, can you give it to multiple companies? Like multiple companies have franchise rights to make books and stuff? That's the part that I wonder about. Does this mean that Wizards of the Coast will not make books and they'll franchise it to other people? Other companies, third parties will make the books? Now there are other books than besides the rule books for D&D. They make like fiction books too. I think they still make those. I did for forever when I knew about it. So that's the part I don't know. That's the part I don't know. Yeah, Max Blaze, this could be worse than the OGL, everything. Yeah, I don't know. Well, I and others could make the argument that third-party D&D books are better than official D&D books. That argument can be made. So, if D&D starts, because like remember, I got like this dry cough now for whatever reason. Remember, at the very beginning of D&D 5th edition, they weren't writing all of the books. They, if I'm not mistaken, I think Kobold Press did one of their adventure modules for them, and perhaps some other companies, but D&D wasn't doing all of its books in-house. They had third parties creating some of these adventure modules for them at the very beginning of D&D 5th edition. I know that for a fact. I just don't remember who it was or the details. So, Kobold Press wrote Dragon Queen. Thank you. Yeah, I thought it was something like that. So, could we be going back to that? Could we going back to the era where Dungeons and Dragons doesn't make their own books? And I'm going to be honest with you, the books might get better. I mean, we're not setting a high bar. Like, if you look at the bit of a mess that the 2024 rule set came out in, you know, you could easily see where a third party could do a better job. With a lighter staff, you could have fewer designers, fewer people on your staff, and do a better job. So, license to pass the buck book. That's very true, and that's the other thing too. When if they're just going to franchise out everything, and what that means basically is they are going to, another company has to pay for the franchise rights to be able to make that book for them, to make that movie for them. Wizards of the Coast is making money from that. But the other company is on the hook for all of the work. They're on the hook for making the book, for doing the book. Now, as far as marketing, I'm not sure how that works. I imagine that Wizards of the Coast, for some things, would probably want to be involved in some of the marketing, but maybe not. Maybe the other company would, and this might actually be, I'm a layman when it comes to franchising stuff. Okay, complete layman. So take that with, everything I'm going to say, keep that in mind. But it's possible that as part of a franchising deal, you might specify like who is in charge of marketing and who is in charge of these different aspects of this product that's being franchised, the rights that are being franchised out. That's probably part of the contract, I imagine. So, but you're right. When you turn to franchising like this, in a way, Wizards of the Coast, what this allows them to do is they're able to lower their headcount, lay people off, because they're not doing the work in-house anymore, and they can outsource the work to other companies, and they make money from franchising, and the other company has to do all the work. And so a lot of the risk, from a financial standpoint, I suppose, at least, passes to the other company, because you're getting your money from the franchise. Now, if the books or whatever don't sell well, now I believe the way franchising works is like I think there's an upfront fee, more than likely, and then there's probably a royalty that you get on sales, for the product. So if they license out something and then it doesn't sell very well, your royalties are going to suck, right? So you don't want that to happen. But at least if a product bombs, you did not spend money on the people writing it and producing it and printing it and doing all that stuff. The other company's on the hook for that, right? So you're passing the buck to them for a lot of these things, but your royalties will suck. So you don't want that to happen. But if it does, you're mitigating risk in a decent way, I think, by doing that sort of thing. And then if a company does a really good job producing a book for you or whatever it happens to be, well, then you're like, great, keep going, baby. But if they suck it up, it might be possible, depending on the contract and stuff, it might be possible to be like, no, you're not doing this anymore. Have somebody else do it or something. I don't know. There are probably different ways to do that, but I'm just kind of like imagining how it might work. I don't really know how that stuff works, So it seems like, but that's the big question. Books. How are they going to be publishing books? How is that actually going to work? I don't know the answer to that. I just don't know. Now it says here that the guy who's taking over for the head of D&D, Ayub, has worked with D&D and Wizards of the Coast since 2022, initially as head of studios and then as senior VP of digital games. Before this, he worked for Microsoft for 11 years. Yeah, almost everybody came from Microsoft. Predominantly as an executive producer and studio head for Halo's 343 Industries. I mean, I assume that this is the Halo game where you're like, a space marine shooting aliens and stuff. I think that's the same game that they're talking about here. I've never heard it called 343 Industries before, so I'm not totally sure. In his LinkedIn post, Ayub says the new role has my childhood self doing cartwheels, as he has apparently been playing D&D since he was 12. I don't know if that's true or not, but I'm just going to say this. LinkedIn posts are horse crappery. Anything you read on LinkedIn is essentially people who work at corporate jobs and stuff putting on a song and a dance to make themselves look good and to make their companies look good. It is social media like ramped up. It's social media for like professional workers, basically. It's just like, so if you go to somebody's Instagram page, you're not going to see the pictures where like they're yelling at their kids and their kids are crying. You're not going to see the pictures where they're kicking their dog. You're not going to see those pictures on the Instagram posts, right? What you're going to see is happy family vacation. Look at us. We're so happy. We're in Paris, you know, and the dog is cuddling up with you in bed. Those are the posts you see on Instagram. You don't see like, you know, when I got wasted at the casino and they kicked me out on the curb and I was broke, you know, and like I got robbed and stuffed in an alley. Like you don't see those pictures. You see the pictures of like, I won $1,000. Look at me. I'm amazing. Those are the posts you see. So LinkedIn is the same thing. So what anything you read on LinkedIn, it should go through a big filter of horse crappery. Okay. So you have to say stupid horse crap on LinkedIn because you're trying to like make yourself be like, oh, look at him. He's amazing. He's like all happy. He's excited and he's happy to be working at this job and all this. It's just a big song. It's horse crappery, guys. It's horse crappery. So, he's apparently been playing D&D since he was 12, which not surprising that you would say this because one of the big criticisms of people that have previously been in charge of D&D is that they don't play the game. And executives are usually fairly intelligent people. And so he probably knows that that was criticisms that other people, like I think Cynthia Williams or whoever it was, and others have probably received. And so, of course, this would seem to be a logical thing to claim. It might actually be true. It would probably be good if it were true because, hey, imagine somebody who's played the game and knows the game running the company. That'd be pretty cool, you know. So hopefully it's true. I just don't trust anything on LinkedIn because it's horse crappery at a new level. I could go on forever about that, how messed up it is. As of today, I'm thrilled, humbled, and somewhat freaked out to be leading the Dungeons and Dragons franchise for Wizards of the Coast. Okay, whatever, dude. These are these like meaningless platitudes that you post to places. He promises that when it comes to this internal shift in structure, the impact here cannot be overstated. So that means something big's gonna change. Something big's gonna happen. That's how I read that. This is massive for D&D and will allow for a strong, coordinated, and well-funded approach. Well-funded approach for the franchise, and most importantly, for us, the fans. Aww. Well-funded approach. That's important, considering that Hasbro has just been some struggle busing going on with finances. And that's probably the push to licensing, and you're mitigating some of the risk, right? Jedi Protector says, corporate speak for nothing will change. Which part? Which part are you referencing, dude? Not much is known about the future of D&D on TV and movie screens, but the franchise has many, many video games in development, and then it lists a whole bunch of video games. Okay, cool. And then there's a D&D release schedule. Okay, whatever. But yeah, there's not a whole lot. It doesn't say, there's not a lot of substance here. So you don't really know what's going to happen. They're going heavy on franchising and how that affects our books. That's the part of D&D I care about the most, and that probably many of us care about the most. How that affects the books, I don't know. I don't know how that affects the books. But it definitely has to do with money. This is a money move, right? This is 100% a money move. Brandy H says all the context here doesn't sound like the franchise we are thinking. I know. That's what, like, when I read this, I got the same vibes. Like, is this the type of franchising that we think of when we say franchising, or is he saying something totally different? Or, you know what I mean? Or is this kind of like a smokescreen for something else? I don't know. It just doesn't it seems really like weird and not quite making sense. It's not quite clicking. You know what I mean? Like, how do you franchise D&D rule books? What does that mean? Or adventure modules and stuff. Like, what does that really mean? Like, contract them out makes sense, but franchise them? Like, what does that mean? So I don't know. Books are different than novels. Yes, that's true, but a novel is a subsection of a book. It's a type of book. So, and this is not, this article is probably not written to be extremely technical and to show those nuances. So I could interpret books in a variety of ways. A novel is a type of book, right? But a TTRPG rules book is not a novel, but it's a type of book, right? So this is a high level category that many things could fit under that roof. McDonald's is a franchise. D&D is a license. Yeah, that's interesting. I don't know. Goliath says, this is not what people think. This is Wizards of the Coast cutting out all third parties, and everything is coming under Wizards of the Coast directly. How does that work? What does that look like? What third party? Okay, let's reread this. We shifted our structure internally, and D&D moved to a full franchise model, meaning everything. Books, video games, film, TV, everything touching the franchise lives under one roof. Wait a second. So are you saying that they're not going to franchise things out? Is that what you're saying, Goliath? Because that, now if you say everything touching the franchise lives under one roof, if that roof is Wizards of the Coast, then that might actually make more sense, but then it's not a franchise at all. Okay, check out the business definition of full franchise model. They're bringing the entire franchise under one roof. Oh, I should actually, that's a good idea. What is a full franchise model? Let's see if ChatGPT can help me. What is a full franchise model? Business definition. Include link to source. Let's see what this says. So my entire last 10 minutes of discourse could be completely misinformed. I was thinking of something totally different. All right, let's see what this says. A full franchise model, also commonly called a business format franchise, is a comprehensive form of franchising where the franchisor licenses not only its brand and products, but its entire business system to the franchisee. This includes trademarks, marketing, operational procedures, training, support, and more. Trademark, okay. So who's the franchisee then? So everything goes to one franchisee or something? Full franchise model. Let's look at this source. Does it have a part that says full franchise model? I don't know. I think the more I read about this, it gets more confusing to me. Yeah, I guess I don't fully understand this now. I don't know what this means. I don't know what the heck this means now because chat's bringing up some very interesting things, which seem to make the article make more sense. Huh. So they'll let the whole shebang go to another company? I don't think so. Haunted news? That doesn't make sense. Click back one page. Which page? Where do you want me to go? You want me to scroll up? Where do you want me to go, Max or Simon? Where are you telling me to go? You don't have to offer out a franchise to anyone, only the ones you want. Yeah. I tried to join a D&D game. I got shunned because I didn't have the D&D books on D&D Beyond. Wasn't able to access all the character creation stuff. Well, that's dumb because the game master, if a game master is requiring you to have access to the stuff in D&D Beyond, why don't they just share the content with you? I'll tell you why. Because that game master didn't want to pay $5 a month so that they could share the content with you, and they're a turd. If they're going to require you to have all the content on D&D Beyond, then they should like share it with you, because they probably have it themselves, and it costs like $5 a month for that subscription so that you can share the content. So that sounds like some horse turdery to me, to be perfectly honest. One page back. What? Here? Are you telling me to go here? Is this the page you want me to go to? Your original ChatGPT search. Read it down near the bottom. I think it gives examples. Okay. Features of it. Why it's called a full franchise model. Unlike product distribution franchise, which only licenses the right to sell a product under minimal oversight, the full franchise model covers every aspect of running the business: branding, operations, training, marketing, and logistics. It's the classic model used by brands like McDonald's, Subway, and Dunkin' Donuts. Okay, quick examples. Business format, full, McDonald's, Subway. Franchisee experience, deep involvement, follows manuals, uses approved suppliers, engages in franchisor run training. Oh, yep, okay, that makes sense. That's how these guys run. I get it. Yep, I understand that. Product distribution, soft drink or auto dealer franchises. The franchisee mainly sells product with minimal guidance on operations or branding. Oh, so you're saying what you're saying, the full franchisee model is, instead of just licensing out the D&D name to somebody to create a movie, it's coming under one roof, and they're going to be heavily involved in every aspect of the franchise operations, the relationship and processes, and how everything is done. Is that is that right? I think I'm understanding that, if I'm understanding that properly. Yeah, total control of Big Boot. Okay. Max says, what will you do, Luke, if the franchisee cost us $50K for next year? Oh, what? What do you, oh, so you're saying what if, like, if in order for me, wait a second, what are you saying? Hold on a second. People in chat have been saying this is like worse than the OGL. So what are we saying? Are we positing that they're going to try to franchise, for instance, I sell 5th edition products, right? That they would try to force me to become part of their franchise operations if I want to sell their products? Is that what we're positing? And that I would have to pay a franchise fee and then follow all of their systems and stuff? Well, they put everything in the Creative Commons, so I don't think they could do that. Yeah, I don't think they can do that with 5th edition stuff. D&D 5e couldn't do that. Yeah, I don't think it makes sense. They couldn't do that. I don't think legally they can do that. We're just kind of going down a thought process here. Trinda says, if you become a Subway franchisee, you can end up with another franchisee Subway branch open nearby. That's actually something that Subway has been, in the past at least, heavily criticized about. When Subway was opening up franchises, or they were giving out franchise licenses, they didn't care if 2 Subways were too close and that they would have direct competition, and that their stores would suffer because of that. They didn't care about that. Subway was way too cavalier with just giving out licenses and franchising all over the place. Even if it meant 2 Subways they were too close together, which meant that they would be stealing each other's customers, basically. And then each of them would suffer, They didn't care about that. That was something that I was reading about, that Subway has been in the past, at least, if not currently, heavily criticized about. So I'm a little familiar with that, which seems just messed up. Uh-oh. Think Marvel franchise, not McDonald's franchisee. Marvel is a franchise. The full franchisee model means that they're fully controlled and developed by Disney. Same idea here. Okay. So D&D, so Wizards of the Coast just controls everything to do with their franchise. That's what we're saying then. Anything to do with their franchise, D&D books, they're just going to control it fully themselves. Is that what we're saying? I mean, that makes a lot of sense. I guess if that's what they want to do. They're bringing everything under one roof as opposed to franchising out to different people to do stuff like movies that bomb. They'll just do it themselves. Sure. I think that makes sense then in the context of the article. They do everything themselves. Okay, that makes sense. They're going more hands-on. Okay. Wow. The full D&D franchise moving under one roof. Oh, okay, cool. Cool. Well, that's good because like I read that article and had a different interpretation of it. But what you're saying makes more sense than the way I was thinking for sure. Goliath says it's going to be a crap show that murders quality. Well, I mean, you can definitely make that argument, and I would not debate you too strenuously on that. I was literally having a conversation with someone. Who was I talking with? I was talking with someone the other day. I forget who it was now. Oh yeah, I remember who it was. I was talking with this person, and we were talking a little bit about D&D 5th edition, and I'm joining a D&D game, but we're running the 2014 rule set. And I was talking to the game master, and for some reason we got onto the topic of the 2024 rule books, and she was talking about how they're not that good. She didn't like them a whole lot, and she thought that Wizards of the Coast wasn't doing a good job, and that the books would probably be better if she made the statement that third-party D&D books are better than the books that Wizards of the Coast does themselves. And I was like, yeah, I mean, you're right. You're totally right. So I don't know that quality is going to get better if they bring everything under one roof and do it themselves, if they're more hands-on, because they don't, from what I see, especially recently, I don't see a good track record of quality from my point of view, from what I've seen. So I don't have a whole lot of confidence in that myself. Luke doesn't need protection? What are we talking about in chat? What are we talking about? I'd get sent to the Shivering Isles in Oblivion? What are you guys talking about in there? The Quangle says third party is so much better. Yeah, I don't know. 2024 rules, there are parts about them that slow the game down though. I don't like that. They're adding more complexity to it, and that's not what you needed. Like, there are some parts of 2024 that they seem to have gotten better at, but there are other parts where, but Tashio, you're a very like analytical, like min-maxy in a good sort of way, and so more rules and more complexity, that's a thing you dig, right? But that's not what I dig. And the problem with more complexity is that combat just drags to a crawl, man. Did you see some of our games? We were like hours in one combat. It was a crawl, and that's not how combat should be. Combat should feel fast paced. Like, maybe combat takes a while, but it shouldn't feel like it takes a while. It should feel exciting and fast paced. And the more rules you have in flight during a combat, it just doesn't work. It doesn't capture that feeling, So I don't think, and I talk about this a little bit in one of my videos that I have coming out, but I don't think it's like 2014 to 2024, they're going more rules heavy. They're adding more rules to it in certain places, like the weapon mastery stuff, weapon specialization, and that sort of, that's an example of it, right? And when you go that direction, it slows things down. It slows the game down. So I don't think that's the right direction. I don't think that's the right direction. They're adding stuff onto it when they should be taking things away. They should be making it smoother, a smoother game, not a clunkier game. People complained that 2014 was too simple, so Wizard of the Coast added weapon mastery. It wasn't too simple. It was fine. I think it's a band-aid solution to try to fix marshals being subpar to spellcasters. I could see that. Give them some stuff. So yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. The problem is that it adds complexity to combat, you know, because you have the weapon mastery thing that procs, that does the thing. And then one of the guys in my D&D, I'm running a D&D 2024 game, and one of the things that he does is he has this sap thing, and it reduces my movement by 10 feet on my next turn. I gotta remember that. Well, actually, I don't, because I literally tell him, hey, you gotta remember, you gotta remind me that his movement's reduced, otherwise I'm gonna forget. So the onus is on him to remind me that my movement is reduced. He may or may not remember, but I can't keep track of all those fiddly bits, like, you know. So, but yeah, that slows things down. Ooh. Yeah, I mean, you can definitely make the argument that 2024 fixed a lot of things, and then another person right next to you is going to make the argument that they broke a lot of things, and you're both right. And then there's a lot of things that were broken that were not fixed. You're both right. All three people are right that make those arguments. They're all right. Some things were fixed, some things that were broken remain broken, and some things that weren't broken were broken. That's what happened. Simon says 2024 slower combat. Characters are around 20 to 25% more powerful than 2014. Yes, they 100% are. Yeah, 100%. From experience, I can tell you that's totally true. Yes. Some people say 2024 fixed stuff. Other people say nerfed stuff. Aren't games fun? All those fiddly bits. Yeah, fiddly bits. Pathfinder 2 weapon specializations do simple things like off guard, tripping, moving a character, bleed, or immobilizing. Yeah, and all those are fiddly bits too that are add to complexity as well. The silver barbs is still broken. Oh, really? They didn't. I think that was one of the. I don't tend to have a whole lot of house rules for the game system. Just the things that I really don't like, and that I feel like are wildly out of balance. And I think silvery barbs was one of them, but I don't remember exactly because I don't think I ever had I think I had somebody using silvery barbs in a one-shot maybe, but not like an ongoing campaign. So I don't remember a whole lot. Oh, silvery barbs is not in 2024. Oh, so then they fixed it. They took it out. Oh, my doggy's here. My doggy. What's going on, doggy? She's probably got to go outside. You got to go outside? You got to go outside? Yeah, you going to try to kiss me? Where's the doggy? Yeah, here's the doggy. Say hi to everybody in the live stream. He's just trying to kiss me. You got to go outside? 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 Yeah. All right, hold on. I'll take you out. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to draw the winner to the live stream, and we're going to call it a day because my dog's got to go outside. And it's time anyway. So, winner to the giveaway. Winner to the giveaway is Killer Kitty. Killer Kitty. Woo, congratulations. You're like in every live stream and you won the giveaway. I'm going to send you an email. I'll get you hooked up with a $50 discount code for the DM Lair store. So, all right, ladies and gentlemen, we'll see you next week. On a live stream probably and in videos and stuff like that. So I will be at Gen Con If you're going to be at Gen Con, I have games. I have like 2 games I'm running at Gen Con as well. If you are going to be at Gen Con, search for me and see if my games still have slots open. I don't know if they do or not. I haven't really been paying attention, but I will be there. And if you see me, please come up and say hi. You know, I love meeting and talking to people. I like live in my basement, so it's always nice to talk to real human beings, you know, and stuff like that. So anyway, hope to see some of you at least, and then we'll see you around. And I gotta take my dog outside. All right, I'm leaving now. Gotta find my buttons. Find my buttons.